Hi, thanks for joining us again. We're going to do lesson 2 of your 4-lesson series in prototype building for the Center for Entrepreneurial Leadership. I would like to introduce today Nicole.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, Nicole, this will be your kit. And the first part of this lesson is going to be about seam ripping. Okay, Nicole, I'm going to go ahead and show you first how I very efficiently rip seams, and then I'll let you try.
Okay.
So this is your seam, and like we talked about in the last lesson, sewing is the process of this machine creating thousands of little knots through the hook and loop system. So you have a top thread and a bottom thread. The easiest way to rip seams is to put your seam ripper, this is the blade, put the seam ripper every four stitches. So you've got one there, and then count approximately 4 stitches. What you do have to do perfectly is not rip your fashion fabric. I turn the fabric over, and then I put my seam ripper underneath the thread. Oh, this one is not coming in. It comes right out. Okay, another way to rip stitches, and this I use if I'm working on really delicate fabric, and that is literally to rip every single stitch. You'll notice if you go stitch by stitch, you're not really ripping the stitch, you're just pulling the thread one by one. And I would go about 4 stitches again, and then I would... There is one way of removing threads that is really easy and efficient and quick. I would only recommend doing this on very thick and sturdy fabrics, and that is I take the blade, I get it between the 2 pieces of fabric, and I just basically run the blade along the stitch, and what I'm doing is just ripping the thread. To make our little zipper sack, I chose a contrasting thread that would go with the zipper. We have a zipper. I have a hand stitching needle for you. We have a few straight pins. You have a pattern, and you have your fabric. This time I've provided you with more fabric than you need for the pattern. This is a selvage. Every fabric has a selvage along the left side and the right side of the fabric. And what that is it's where the weave is finished in the fabric. The grain of the fabric follows the selvage. So when you see a pattern that gives you directions that say up and down, this up and down goes vertically with the selvage, and this is the cross grain. So could you fold this up to meet that? Perfect. Would you like to lay your pattern this way on the fabric? You never want your pin to move outside of the line of the paper. So when you pin, we'll review this, you want to put your pin straight through the fabric, orienting it downwards, and then shift it in the direction that you want to pin it, and then poke it back through the fabric. Always be careful when you're pinning to cut that your pin point does not cross over the fabric, because you'll be tempted to keep cutting and you will hurt the blade of your scissors. So I would say, pinning something like this, I would pin the 4 corners first, and then I'd put 1 pin here, 1 pin here, 1 pin here, and 1 pin here, and that should be enough. In cutting, like we did in the last lesson, you want to open your blade very wide, and you want your blade to cut right next to the paper on the fabric. You really want it to be exactly next to the paper on the fabric. And I like to do long, smooth cuts. I find them to be a lot cleaner. So I open my blade as far as it'll go, and then close it completely. So can you put stitch C on onto the... Perfect. And then go ahead and twist the stitch length wheel to 2. So do you want to start by planting the needle? Now gently hold these threads. And what you want to look for is your stitch wants to be near the edge. So I would just see how it feels. See if you can go ahead and control the machine to create a nice, even zigzag. Okay, and stop. Okay, wind this towards you so the needle's all the way up. Lift the presser foot with the presser foot lever and pull your zigzag piece out. Go ahead and pull it towards you. And then you have a thread trimmer on the side of the machine if you want to just pull your thread. There's a blade in that hook. Perfect. So let's try it again on the other side. So are you ready to apply the zipper?
Yeah.
When you place your zipper in place, we're going to do what's called an exposed zipper. And this is a decorative zipper. I chose contrasting color because I thought it would be kind of fun. Can you go ahead and lay this zipper face down on the fabric? This fabric doesn't have a front and a back, so we'll call this the front. So you want the front of the zipper to be facing front to the front of the fabric. And it's actually called the face of the fabric. Perfect. I'll show you. With this kind of sewing, I like to place the head of the pin out and the point of the pin in. We're going to go ahead and pin the zipper in place at 3 spots. It looks perfect, Nicole. Now I want to teach you how to baste this in place. Can you pull a length of the thread off of the spool of thread? That would be 18 inches. Now, can you take your hand sewing needle and just lead the thread through the eye of the needle. Perfect. And why don't I show you about tying a knot? If I'm just going to do something that's basting, I want a good bit of thread hanging off because I need something to pull on. What I just did was I just folded the thread in half, and I'm going to tie that around my finger. So I created the circle, and I'm putting the thread through the circle and pulling it through. And what I have here, I mean, this is not a great garment knot, but this is a good knot for basting because it gives me something to pull on at the end. It's also very secure. So basting is basically doing a long running stitch, and all we're going to do is hold the zipper in place on the face fabric so that when you sew it doesn't pull or wobble around or give you troubles. So I'm going to start at the top up, and I want a big sloppy knot because I want it to be as easy as possible to take out. So I am just going to pull it through, and these are big stitches. They're not intended to hold anything permanently. They're just intended to hold it in place for sewing. So a tailor's knot anchors the thread into the fabric. You pierce your fabric. You just pierce a little fiber of the fabric, and then you take your thread and wrap it around the needle 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you pull your needle through and pull the thread all the way through, and that'll create the knot. Now push them down perfect, and then go ahead and just pull the needle through with the thread, and it should come right through. Let's see. Let me see if I can help a little bit. Oh, you know what? You did a very good knot. It's nice and tight from the beginning. So if that happens, just let it come a little loose and go ahead and pull it through. And that is a tailor's knot. That's all we're going to do for today on lesson 2. But you did a great job.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we're ready to start with the second part of lesson 2, the zipper sack. And I'd like to introduce to you Tiana.
Hi.
So in the first part of the lesson, we cut fabric along the up and down grain. We did an overlock or a zigzag stitch to finish the edges. They wouldn't run too much. We basted the zipper in place. And now we're ready to sew the zipper in place. this is where you store your utility pieces, and we're going to change the foot for this next. Perfect. Okay, so inside of your utility storage area, you had your zipper foot. And this is what your zipper foot will look like in all Janome 2212s. It is a lot smaller than the zigzag foot, which is what you straight stitch on. And what that does is it lets you stitch a seam much, much closer to the teeth of the zipper. Go ahead and crank the hand wheel towards you a tiny bit so that needle comes up a little higher. Oh, wait, it's going down. Let's break the rule this time. Move it away from you so that the needle goes higher, just the hand wheel, if you could.
Oh, the hand.
Raise the hand wheel, there you go. The only time, I never crank the hand wheel a full rotation away from me because it'll tangle up the thread in your bobbin. But if you need to bring your needle up to its most upright position so you can work with different feet, you can crank the hand wheel away from you just a little bit. So can you go ahead and position the zipper foot underneath this hook? And then just play with it a couple times until you get it right. You take this lever, this is the presser foot lifter, and oh, you did it on the first try.
Awesome.
I'm impressed. So Tiana, we have basted our zipper in place. And basting is important because it anchors two pieces of fabric together loosely enough for them to go under the sewing machine. This just helps us keep the zipper in place and not twisting out of place while we do the actual machine sewing. So you have a bit of what it's going to look like when you're done, but you'll see the stitches are big and sloppy and they don't hold it in place. So I want to sew this zipper to this fabric. So what I do is I fold it so that going under the machine is just the zipper and the seam allowance that I'm going to sew it to. Seam allowance is literally the part of fabric on the outside of the stitch that just holds the stitch in place. And I'm going to ask you to lift up your presser foot lifter. I'm going to help you position your first stitch. Okay. I want to stitch basically one presser foot. The line of the presser foot wants to be next to the outside of the zipper. Is that looking correct?
Yes.
Okay. So go ahead and push that back a tiny bit and lower your presser foot. There you go. Now, moving the hand wheel towards you because
it's my friend.
Because it's your friend. Anchor your needle in the fabric. Now you're good. Can you put the machine onto stitch A?
Does it go this way?
You might have to go to the right. Thank you.
Awesome.
Now continue. We're not going to be able to go the whole way, but continue to about 75% of your zipper. And I'll explain why you can't go the entire way when we get there. But right now I'm going to mark your stopping point. I'm going to say go ahead and sew to right there. So let's go ahead and do 3 slow stitches forward. So gentle pressure on your presser foot. There you go. Now let's hit that reverse button. Very good. And now you're ready to sew your straight line. Very good. Very nice. You're going at a perfect speed for working on a zipper. You have a nice control over the machine.
Thank you.
And then go to that needle and stop. There you go. Now, if you can wind the hand wheel backwards just a little bit to bring the needle to its utmost position. Oh, I thought I was going to go back. There you go. So go ahead and lift the presser foot and pull it out. Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to start on the other side. Perfect. So Tiana, I'm going to ask you at this point to snip those little threads.
Okay.
Perfect. Really good. Now if you could, open this up and open up your zipper.
Unzip?
Mm-hmm. That looks great. So let's go back to the side that we just sewed on. Exactly. And we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna finish our seam from where we stopped, which was right there, to the top. So, where were we? We were here. We sewed your seam to right here. Can you see where you stopped?
Mm-hmm.
Can you go ahead and plant your needle maybe 1/4 of an inch before that, and then we'll just continue.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe. Let out, hold it, right?
That is actually a great question. To have control of the thread, you want it to be the 2 threads together, and you want them to angle to about the 2 o'clock position.
Okay.
It's perfect.
And then
Exactly. And now you just find where you stopped. It's tough because it's a good match with the thread color.
It's like the perfect color.
Actually, you know what? Let's just back
right
up.
here.
Perfect. Let's just back up a good inch. Let's start here.
Okay.
Because the more thread you have running over it, the more secure it'll be. Great. Great. And plant your needle, which means with the hand wheel coming towards you, because it's your friend. There you go. Let's go ahead and give it. You don't have to backstitch this because you're running over your original stitch.
Okay.
Now when you come close to the end, you will backstitch. So when you come to about here, I'll ask you to stop, and then I'll ask you to back up 3 stitches.
Okay.
First stop. Perfect. And go ahead and push the reverse. Okay, and go forward a tiny bit. 1, 2, 3. Great. You did a perfect zipper.
Awesome. And up, right?
Towards you, yeah. And then lift your presser foot. Perfect.
Well,
That's
not
just a little bit of the under thread. It's just the bobbin tail is catching underneath the top tail, I think. All right, Tiana, you did a great job sewing the
Thank
first
you.
part of the zipper tape down. This time we're going to do the same thing, but in the reverse. You'll notice the zipper is in the open position, right? And we'll start from the 3/4 position. So if you could go ahead and put this here and plant your needle right beneath that pin.
Okay.
All right, Tiana, you did a great job sewing the zipper tape in place on the first side.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So this time we're going to do all of the same steps just in reverse. The first time we sewed it, do you remember that the zipper was closed?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. This time we're going to leave the zipper open, but we'll do the same thing. We'll start at the top, 3 stitches down, 3 stitches back, and continue to the pin.
Okay.
Perfect. And then plant your needle with your hand. Pull the presser foot towards you. There you go. Grab those threads. There you go.
This one's short. Okay.
Good. Sewing zipper tape on first lesson is actually pretty challenging. Stop. Now go ahead and do 3 steps back. turn that towards you. Perfect. And when you pull it out, you'll, exactly. You've got a great memory for this.
Thank you.
You know, you can leave, I don't think you can leave your pin in. Go ahead and take your pin out. There you go. And I would clean up your threads.
Okay.
Okay, so Tiana, since we're doing everything in reverse, we sewed down to here with the zipper open.
Mhm.
Now we close the zipper and we continue from here. Would you like me to mark, or would you like to mark
Sure.
where you left off so you know where to start again?
So I left off here, so I want to start back here.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And that's perfect, pinning you straight down and back in.
Oops.
It's not easy to do.
Make sure I'm at the right spot.
Very good.
Okay.
We might have pinned before closing the zipper, which might make it hard to close the zipper.
Okay.
You can give it a try, but we might
Okay.
have to take that pin out and pin it again.
Okay.
That was my bad.
Oh yeah. Maybe if we just
Let's see.
back it up a little. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Perfect. All right, so now we've got our zipper closed, and it's tricky to find where you left off, isn't it?
Right here?
There it is.
Okay.
That looks good.
It's a diagonal. Is that okay?
That's okay. All you needed for is a marker. And is that truly the side that we sewed on? It is. That is truly the side that we sewed on. So you'll start here and continue to the bottom.
Okay. Awesome.
And I would move your threads, before you start, move your threads out to the 2 o'clock position. Great. Mm-mm.
No,
Other way
the other way?
around. Yep. Lower your presser foot. And turn your hand
it's
towards
my
you.
friend.
Because it's your friend. Plant your needle. And go ahead and finish to the bottom.
Okay.
And I'll direct you to stop when you get close to the bottom. And then the back stitch. And stop. And now 3 stitches back. Perfect.
And go back forward?
Nope, you're done.
Okay.
Yeah, you can lift the presser foot. And clean up your stitches. Remove your needle. And let's go ahead and open that zipper. Perfect. What your zipper sack will look like when it's done.
Yeah.
Good. So I think that the common sense thinking would be that you would place your zipper side to side like this, so that you would be sewing on the pretty part. But when you sew, generally, now not always, there are exceptions, but in the beginning, when we're sewing, we sew with the face to the face. So we stay on the inside so that our stitches and our stitch finishes are on the inside, and then when we turn it right side out, then you have your finished piece.
Nice.
So we're gonna go ahead and pin this together in 4 corners,
Okay.
and then a pin in the middle, a pin in the middle, and a pin here. And that should be enough. With this, I'm gonna go ahead and remind you about pinning. We don't ever want our yellow pin head to cross the line of stitching. Our line of stitching is a 1/2 inch in from the outside.
Okay.
So when you pin, I'm going to go ahead and say when we're pinning this, we'll pin with the point angling to the inside of the garment. When you pin, you put the point through all layers of fabric, turn it towards the inside, and then push it back out. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's pin all 4 corners,
Okay.
and then we'll pin the inside. So I think you're ready. And just as a reminder, and this is a great thing to remember from the beginning, when you pin, there were 2 different types of pinning. When we're cutting paper on top of fabric, our pin heads are in the middle of the fabric with the pins moving out, and you never cross over the line of the fabric because you don't want to cut the pin. But when you're sewing, this gives you a little bit more control. You want your pin heads off of the fabric, facing in. And
Great.
you're ready.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. So Tiana,
Yes.
can you put your zigzag foot back on after
Okay.
you remove your zipper foot?
So first, toward me, right?
Exactly.
And this is up, right?
Exactly. That's up as high as it needs to be.
Okay.
And you're doing perfectly. You're positioning the bar right beneath the foot. Oh, it's a little too far forward, and that's okay. All right, so there you go. Nailed it. And the way to test it, it's really funny. Often you have to try it a few times before you nail it. The way to test it is lift the press. Perfect. That's when you know it's secure.
Awesome.
Perfect. Now before we sew, go ahead and wind that thread through the slot on the presser foot, so it's coming down and through, and position your threads to the 2 o'clock. Oh, I'm sorry. You came up and through. If you could reverse that and just go down and through. There you go. Now, something I want to show you on this is called your needle plate. And right here, you have a little perpendicular line. When you do a corner, that's the guide mark that tells you to stop and plant your needle, pivot, and turn. So when you sew, when your fabric corner hits this line, that's when you know to stop. Are you ready to sew?
I'm ready.
Okay. So, Tiana, I'm going to ask you to position your fabric so that your fabric sits flush to this line. This is it'll say 4/8, but this line here is where you want the outside of your fabric to meet up with. Okay, go ahead. Are you lined up with the 4/8? You are. You look great. Let's go ahead and put the presser foot down. Now, you have this pin here. Let's plant our needle by hand. So if you could turn the hand wheel towards you, because
It's my friend.
it's your friend. Now it's planted, so stop there. Now that your needle is planted, you don't need that pin anymore. Take that pin out. Perfect. All right. So we are going to back tack here.
Okay.
So let's do 3 little stitches forward. So let's go 3 stitches backwards.
Awesome.
Let's do another 2 stitches backwards, just for good measure. There you go. Okay. And let's just go ahead and continue to the bottom until this corner meets that perpendicular line.
Okay.
All right. And now let's notice the needle will go right over that pin. Beautiful. Beautiful. Now keep your eye on the corner. Keep your eye on the corner, and when it hits that perpendicular line, stop. You're not there yet. You've got probably 2 stitches. There you go. Now let's go ahead and turn this hand wheel towards you 1 rotation until that needle plants. There you go. And just for information's sake, the difference between a needle and a pin is a needle has a hole in it for thread to go through, and a pin just has a point. Just FYI. So let's go ahead and let's pull that lever up and then pivot, which means pull the fabric so that you are ready to sew in a new direction. You've now pivoted perfectly. Let's go ahead and put your presser foot down and continue. You don't need to backstitch at your corners, you just sew.
Okay.
go ahead and come back to our needle. We're at our corner again. You've done perfectly. Let's go ahead and rotate this hand wheel towards you, one full rotation towards you, and plant your needle. Perfect. Now let's lift the presser foot and let's pivot again. And then you will sew up to your top corner and you'll back stitch and then you'll be done. But first plant your presser foot. Very good. You're doing great. Let's go ahead and come in this way a little bit, and I just feel that we could run the risk of running over a tiny touch of metal if we go too far in. There you go, keep going.
Okay.
I think you're gonna be good. Keep going. Keep going. Perfect. Okay, now back stitch 3 stitches. You've locked your stitch, but let's go ahead and come back 3 stitches just for strength. So that's, you backed it up 3 stitches, now come forward 3 stitches. Very clean. Okay, good. Lift your presser foot and trim your threads. If it ever feels like it's catching, wobble your hand wheel. If
Okay.
the threads ever feel like they're just tight and you can't pull them off, a good wobble to the hand wheel usually releases any knots that the machine has made. Very good.